Tilea's Troubles, Part 141. To rise above the machinations and lies of weaker men. Glammerscale had waited over an hour for his audience with the king, but the delay stirred no annoyance in him, being glad as he was just to be admitted. What small doubts lingered in his mind concerning whether it was a sign the king did not consider his counsel worth while were washed away when he was ushered into the royal chamber and the king apologised for his tardiness. "You have letters, I hear, that you wish to read, Master Mage, but none addressed to me," said the king. "You have been informed correctly, Your Majesty. It has become the new fashion. The rulers of Tilea don't just send letters anymore, they publish them, intending that all and anyone might read them, or more usually, I suppose, hear them read." "Proclamations, then, but intended for more than their own subjects." "Aye, sir, you have it. I believe they are keen to seed the inevitable gossip with their own words, rather than printed speculations, or their enemies' lies and slanders. No doubt the accounts still change somewhat with every telling, but the origins of those accounts at least will be whatever they themselves wrote, and the letters provide a corrective reference." "All well and good for them, that their words might be recounted more accurately, but does it really get us any closer to the truth? Can we really trust whatever they wrote in the first place? I can think of many a reason for falsehoods, even in the letters' own words. The authors themselves could be lying throughout, or what they write could well be based on lies that they themselves believe." "Aye, sir, I admit freely it is all very chicken and egg." The king raised an eyebrow at this, but said nothing. Glammerscale immediately regretted his riddlesome words, and wondered if the king's silence was due to an unwillingness to admit his ignorance concerning the comment. "By which, sir," the wizard quickly added, "I mean the lie might come either first or later, or both." The king smiled. "Lies are but one concern. Before hearsay and gossip do their worst, there's many a slip an author can make. They might be mistaken, deluded, or so angry that their minds are clouded. They might be making promises they've no intention of keeping, or threats they've not the means to carry out. So, even when repeated word for word, these letters might still mislead far more than enlighten, except, of course, the honest words of noble and honourable dwarves with untainted reputations to maintain." Glammerscale knew the king was jesting with him. "I concur wholeheartedly, sir. But still, at least we may know what the author wants us to hear, which in itself is revealing, and a species of truth in its own way. What with their names attached, then we also have promises we can hold them to." "Which may become nothing more than broken promises we can admonish them for," said the king. "But, Mage, read your letters. I would like to know the noble gossip." "As you wish, sir," said Glammerscale, shuffling for the first paper he intended to read. "This is from Lord Silvano Gondi. He sent almost exactly the same letter to umpteen rulers, this being the one printed in Remus. If the printer changed the words, then it would be known, what with so many other versions to compare it to. Besides, a pamphlet such as this most likely sells just as well when true to the original as when the words have been mangled in some manner." The king simply nodded and gestured to the paper. Glammerscale cleared his throat and began to read. "This letter is sent in earnest from Lord Silvano Gondi, regent of the ancient and noble realm of Pavonan during the time of Duke Guidobaldi Gondvi's convalescence. It should not be lightly ignored or put aside for further consideration, for it concerns a clear and present danger threatening all the city-states of Tilea." "Ha!" said the king. "That'll be the rat, men. The lad has his priorities right, and wastes no time in preambles. I may like him." "He is advanced beyond his years, sir, both in experience of war and in politicking, and has had to learn quickly how to ameliorate the anger from all quarters over his father's somewhat reckless actions." "Reckless, you say, wizard? And you yourself banished from your own home because of that man's bigotry? The lad has so far spent his few years of adulthood apologising for his father, attempting to right no end of wrongs, including murders most foul. I think an older man would have long since given up trying." "Then, for Tilea's sake, it is good that he is so young." "Read on," commanded the king. "Every noble ruler Governor, High Council and Captain in Tilea, has no doubt heard of the great and terrible weapon employed by the uomini ratto in their attack upon the realm of Campagrotta, which did not only kill almost all who were on the field of battle, but has since poisoned the land for leagues around, and so tainted the waters of the river Tarano that the flora and fauna along its banks suffer sickness and death almost unto the sea. I hope the lad's not going to make the merchants and traders afraid to travel through Campagrotta, for that would make our iron road somewhat quiet. Still, something must be done. Glammerscale returned to his reading. The enemy's leaders are unlikely to be satisfied with their conquests of Ravola and Campagrotta, however. For many centuries they have been known for their particular greed and lust for power, their urge to swarm across the whole world and make themselves the foul masters of all. As for their terror weapon, if they can fashion one such, then they can make more. I have no doubt they could do so, interrupted the king. Yet, in truth, their second engine was a falsehood, merely a simulacrum made to appear dangerous. They thought to threaten us all with such trickery. They did, sir, but their threat was made credible by the fact the first engine had indeed been truly destructive. I believe this letter was written in the winter months, before the Riemann victory over the Ratmen, and their subsequent discovery regarding the true nature of the so-called Doom Bombard. To my mind, the fact that this was not corrected by the letter's printer makes it more likely that these are Silvano's actual words. Then, said the king, let us hear what else the lad has to say. Glammerscale continued reading. If they have consumed 2 realms already, then they likely intend to feast on more, for their hunger knows no bounds, and only waxes with victory. They surely plan to benefit from the turmoil caused by the wars against the vampires and brutes, to strike just as Tilea's city-states have been weakened by years of conflict. Only last month, an Uomo Ratto spy was discovered in our city of Pavonan, and was killed before attempting whatever assassination it had in mind, or passing on what intelligence it had gained. I warn all rulers to be wary of such spies. You must know that we are, all of us, being watched, and it does not bode well. The uomini ratto, like their smaller animal cousins, favour the darkest and most squalid of places, the sewers, cellars and alleys of our cities, navigating the dark shadows around us without our knowing. From there they can listen or creep forth to steal and murder. For over a year now we have known that many companies of uomini ratto warriors, some of considerable size, have been scouting the Trentine hills and surrounding areas, and that they have once again found a way to travel beneath the ground, perhaps repairing and extending the underpasses of past ages. The king grunted. The Pavonans think they have it bad. You should try mining beneath the mountains, where day and night a watch has to be kept upon all sides, at every crevice and passageway, to prevent the Ratmen's incessant incursions. Still, it is all new to them. He pointed at the letter, indicating Glammerscale should continue. Spies, assassins and scouts, combined with assaults, conquests and terror weapons, altogether reveal that the uomini ratto are no longer merely plotting and preparing, but have commenced open war. And so it is that if any state within Tilea wishes to survive this new assault, a grand alliance must surely be agreed. Only a force to rival that which Lord Alessio of Porto Majori drove back the undead into the marshes could possibly defeat and destroy the verminous hordes. It's not wrong, said the king. They'll likely need an army larger than that which Lord Alessio gathered. And he had dwarven regiments from Remus fighting for him, no doubt each worth 2 regiments of men. But forgive me my interruptions, Master Mage. Please, read the rest. Glammerscale was not used to such apologies, certainly not from any noble dwarf. Even when he lived in the society of men, other dwarfs had thought him a strange creature, simply because he had chosen to study magic, and most were generally lax when it came to manners during conversation with him. Here, in Karak Borgo, he was most often shunned, and only really conversed at any length with the other exiles, or those ordered to speak with him. He continued to read. I bravely served in the war against the vampires, and was injured in the battle to defend Rimas and the whole of the south from Boldegut's double army of ogres. Yet I am now fully willing to serve again, and to command every soldier Pavonan possesses in the battles to come. No single city-state, alone, can hope to win against this new threat. So I now ask Rimas, Verezzo, Porto Majori, Ridrafa, and Alcente to send all they can to join with me. The Grand Alliance army so formed, governed by a council of war and the noblest of generals, should then act to defend any and all of those states who contributed a proportionate force to the army, immediately and as required, to discover and destroy every verminous army sent against us. I note, said the king, he does not include us in his list, nor did he send any such letter to us. Perhaps he bears some hatred of dwarfs, like his father. Or, said Glammerscale, he did not presume to write to us because of his father's past deeds. A shyness or shame, possibly, suggested the king. But of course he must know that we are already embroiled in war against the Ratmen. While we do what we can in the north, let him do what he can from the south. Glammerscale knew better than to inquire concerning the king's communications with the elves and the Arrabbiati in the north. Such diplomacy was a matter for the king and his courtiers. He did not count himself among the latter yet, although he was working on the matter. Lord Silvano does not exactly say it, the king continued, but I would bet he wants command of any alliance army that gathers. Well, he might, sir, what with his father's invalidity. He has had to take his new responsibilities to heart, commanding Pavonan as if he were already duke. Certainly, it seems the Pavonans obey him as if he were. It is strange that his father hasn't formally relinquished power with another public letter, although it may be that we just have not received any copies of such a pronouncement. I know enough about Tilea's rulers, Master Mage, to know that Duke Guidobaldo was never the sort to yield his authority. He will cling to power until his last moment. Aye, sir, he will, agreed Glammerscale. But circumstances have conspired to allow Silvano to seize power nevertheless. I wonder if he can just as successfully seize generalship of any alliance army. That's doubtful, Master Mage, for he has powerful enemies. The shadow cast by his father's dreadful deeds stretches far and wide, and those directly slandered by the Duke's lies and deceptions, of which some are named in that letter, will surely find it hard to trust the son of such a lord. Glammerscale flicked through the papers, pulling one out. On that note, sir, this here is supposedly from Lord Alessio of Porto Majori. If it is genuine, then he has no confidence at all in the young general, nor apparently even a shred of respect. Would you hear it, sir? I will listen to whichever you think I should hear. This is why you've been summoned, Master Mage. Glammerscale bowed and spoke. It reads as a personal missive to Lord Silvano, but was nevertheless printed for all to read. From Lord Alessio Falcone to Lord Silvano Gonde, heir to and regent of Pavonan. We thank you for your letter, received this last week. As you might imagine, the Sartosan pirates' cowardly assaults upon our beloved Porto Majori did greatly offend us, and threatened to reduce my soldiers' spirits, despite returning victorious from the long war against the vampires, which we saw to completion, burning the entire city of Miragliano, so that every accursed corpse was reduced to ashes, and the very ground cleansed of taint to a depth of several feet, in a fire so hot that the waters about the city boiled. In truth, your letter raised my captain's spirits, for they considered your father's insult, that of employing my personal standard in a duplicitous attempt to pin the blame for your own heinous crimes on Porto Majori, so wrong that they were happy to hear how you tremble in fear at the threat presented by the verminous hordes. So much, indeed, that you are forced to beg for aid from those you have most foully slandered. Several captains jested that they would rather have sided with the late Duchess than with a Pavonan. Such is the magnitude of their anger over your father's monstrous deed. Yet I myself am both practical and honourable, able to rise above the machinations and lies of weaker men, and if not to forgive easily, then at least to find a way to prevent the further unnecessary suffering of the common people. And so, rather than dismiss your proposal of an alliance against the Uominirato, I am willing to enter into such, provided that either you or your father, presuming he is sufficiently recovered to do so, offer a formal and public apology for your father's transgressions, as you gave to General Valkenburg of the army of the VMC, and also Barone Iacopo of Verezzo, thereby to satisfy myself, my captains, and my subjects that you acknowledge all the blame arising therefrom, and, furthermore, that you pay a full and suitable monetary recompense for the impugnment of both mine and my captain's honour. This offer is made, howsoever doubtful of an honest and reasonable reply, in light of Tilea's future survival. Lord Alessio Falcone. The king pondered this a moment, while Glammerscale awaited what he had to say. So, said the king, Lord Alessio would have Silvano beg yet again for forgiveness, as he has done twice before, as well as pay a fine. His is a penance that never seems to end. I have heard, sir, said Glammerscale, that Lord Silvano's most common utterance is that he is not his father. Well, that won't help the lad with Porto Majori. I think Lord Alessio hates everyone with the name Gondi. May well be that Alessio is tired of campaigning, whether he knows it or not, is using his dislike of the Pavonans to excuse his inaction. Or perhaps, sir, suggested Glammerscale, he hates the Sartosans more, and would first have revenge on them for their murderous pillaging of his realm before dealing with the Pavonans. He ought to be careful, said the king, that he does not allow an urge for revenge to make him blind to present threats. If I were he, I would think to bring about the defeat of the Ratmen before I try to settle old scores. But, that said, he is far to the south, and perhaps there are enough of us in the north to beat the Ratmen without his aid. What of the elves of the Teteverde forest? Have they sent letters to the Tilean lords? Again Glammerscale bit his tongue concerning his desire to know of elven letters to the king. If his majesty wanted him to know, he would tell him. There may well be elven letters, sir, answered the wizard, but if so, not among those read in the squares and temples, nor those published in print. The king laughed. The elves probably fear the mangling of their fancy words by human printers and orators. So, what else have you to read? Glammerscale was already thumbing through the collected papers. I cannot read elven letters to you, sir, but here are two from an Estalian Vicomte. It appears one was addressed to Lord Alessio and the other to the VMC's General Valkenburg, but both published for public consumption. They concern why he is returned to Lucchini. This to Lord Alessio Falcone, from your old friend Vicomte Gismondo Giacometti. From childhood I both honoured and respected you, noble lord, and in continuing the same, as well as knowing the fondness you bear for my cousin, King Ferronzo, I wish to inform you of my motives and aims concerning my arrival in Lucchini. I want only to assist my cousin and his realm in any way I can, to ensure that Lucchini prospers, and will no longer be a burden on realms such as your own Porto Majori, but instead become a benefit to the whole of Tilea, able to defend itself, assist its neighbours, and contribute to the common weal of the entire peninsula. Furthermore, although I am most keen to help in any and every way I can, I was earnestly invited here by Duke Ercole Perotto, in his capacity as regent, while his nephew the king is incapacitated as a consequence of his tortures at the hands of the Sartosan pirates. Duke Ercole desires that I employ my military experience, as well as his and mine own forces, both Solsonan and mercenary, to guard Lucchini from further incursions, not only regain control of those settlements critically injured in recent months, but to ensure that they are nursed back to full health. Whether it be Sartosan corsairs or the vile uomini ratto, any who threaten this realm in future will surely soon regret their actions, and indeed suffer considerably as a consequence. I pray that more and all the lawful gods guide and protect you, and reward you bountifully for your great service against the vampires. The king's brow furrowed. Luchinans, Solsonans, mercenaries, he mused. That seems a lot for defending a realm against an already sated Sartosan fleet. Surely Lucchini is too far south to be travelled ere long by the Ratmen. I wonder, does he know the Sartosans' intentions? Perhaps they are not dispersed. Even so, to raid a realm they've already robbed twice over, that seems unlikely. What of the other letter, Master Mage? Glammerscale had it already to hand, and read immediately. This to the Honourable General Valkenburg, from Vicomte Gismondo Giacometti, cousin and servant to King Ferronzo of Lucchini. So that you may not be deceived by false rumours and suppositions to believe untruths concerning my purpose in Tilea, I want you to know that my goal is only to aid my royal cousin in the heavy burden of nursing his realm to full recovery after the punishments inflicted upon it by the Sartosan scum who similarly ravaged your own realm of Alcente, and to return to its rule all estates and proprietary rights previously lost. In so doing, Lucini can be made both defensible and strong, as well as healthy and prosperous. The threat of Kernag's horde is no more, thanks to the victories of your own army, and the Sartosans have, for now, quit our shores. However, Lucini cannot be allowed to lie wounded and weak for any length of time. It ought never be a burden upon its neighbours, but rather a strong ally against evil and a righter of wrongs. "False rumours and suppositions," he writes, said the king. "Either someone is saying bad things about this Vicomte, or he believes the VMC general has a grievance against him, or perhaps he simply wants to appear harmless. I suppose time will tell which of these is true." Glammerscale nodded in agreement, then said, "What else was added to these missives, for the recipient's eyes only, can only be guessed at, if indeed there were any such additions. But I suspect that despite these public letters, there is likely no lessening of the number of private messages." The king chuckled. "Aye, I have no doubt of that, nor that any of them were any more truthful than these you have read." "There is one more, sir, which seems of importance. It mentions Campagrotta, though not the Arrabbiati. And it mentions dwarves, and indeed you yourself, sir." "Oh, does it? Well, you've saved the best till last, then. Go on," commanded the king. "Lord Silvano, most likely before receiving the letter I read from Lord Alessio, seems to have redoubled his efforts to bring to fruition his Grand Alliance army, as well as letters sent elsewhere, including some continued exchanges with Pavona's erstwhile enemy Varezzo. He has penned a further public missive, which is as follows. This to the noble rulers of the three greatest city-states in the south and west of Tilea, His Holiness Bernardo Ugolini of Rimas, Lord Alessio of Porto Majori, and General Valkenburg of the army of the VMC. And also, here he lists all the other rulers in the south. From Lord Silvano Gondi, ad interim regent to the ancient realm of Pavona. None in Tilea can fail to know the threat presented by the Uomini Ratto, resurgent as they are in the wake of several destructive tides, and, having smelled the blood of Tilea's wounds, they no doubt seek to strike, while the city-states are reeling from the blows received. It is not in my nature to seek refuge in such a time, to lie abed in my chamber, nor shelter behind the city walls, nor only to pray that the gods might inspire other commanders to take up the sword of battle. It is widely known how I have fought many a conflict, despite my relative youth, against the foulest of foes, in the defence of mine own and several other realms, even unto being grievously injured in the defence of the holy city of Rimas. Despite such trials, immediately upon recovery I rode in earnest to assist in the defence of Campagrotta against the Ratmen, only to be forced to return by the news of the assassination attempt which so wounded my father. I have never yet broken a vow to fight any enemy, and I intend never to do so. Thus I shall return to the fight against the verminous hordes. The Remans, under His Holiness Bernardo, faced the Ratmen in battle only a month ago, and General Lord Alessio led an alliance force far to the north to victory, fighting against the foulest of foes in battle after battle. It is too much to ask either of these great leaders to shoulder the burden yet again, especially after all the suffering of their own realms, and so I offer myself as Captain General of a new Grand Alliance force." "Ha!" blurted the king. "There it is! The arrogance of youth! I said as much. Go on." "I offer myself as Captain General of a new Grand Alliance force to push northwards and secure the realm against any and all verminous resurgences, to nip their growth in the bud before they can muster sufficient strength to threaten the heartlands of Tilea, and to ensure that the defeat of their army by the Remans is truly the beginning of the end of their incursions. Thus it is that I beg of you, in the service of the people of Tilea and all the lawful gods, to send what force you can to gather at Trantio, a city I know well, having once ruled as protector, being perfectly situated to act as a bastion from which either to launch the assault or break an attacking force. And as a sign that this is a new age for Pavona, under the guiding hand of an enlightened prince, as proof of Pavona's transformation and renaissance, I have decreed that dwarves will once more be welcome in our city, to dwell, to trade, to prosper, as full and respected citizens." "Oh, so you'll be returning home again, Master Mage?" said the king with a grin. "Well, sir, I was not planning to. I'm but teasing you, Glammerscale. Worry not and read on. I would hear what he has to say about me." "This is done also in thanks to the dwarven King Jaldeog, who cleansed the northeast of the brute ogres, using both his own warriors as well as mercenary armies, seeking not conquests, but only to bring peace and prosperity for the city-states there and elsewhere." "He speaks very kindly, this young lord, and yet somehow, still, I feel my fondness for him slipping, for I sense a game being played here." "I think, sir, that among the ruling men of Tilea there is ever and always a game being played." Then Glammerscale continued the letter. "I pray that Myrmidia might guide us in battle, that Macopio might help feed and arm us, and that Holymore might ensure restful sleep and a heavenly welcome for those who die bravely in this great cause. And I pray to all the lawful gods that once the Uomini-Rato are driven from every corner of this great peninsula, then at last, well-deservedly, Tilea might commence a glorious era of peace and prosperity." "Well," said the king, "if what you've read comes to fruition, I find myself uneasy that instead of Lord Alessio, who has achieved so much for Tilea, and at such a cost to his own realm, the city realms might put their armies under the command of one so young, who bears a name so tarnished by his own father that it is generally hated."